I want to talk about multiclassing.
Sure, okay.
So let's discuss the best character classes to dip for multiclassing in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as always, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time hanging out in Ted's basement. It's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
Alright, so we're going to talk about the best character classes to level dip in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to kind of like maximize and optimize your character builds. So with that, I think the first thing we have to do is define what exactly is a level dip.
So level dip is pretty easy. That's where you're looking at, only taking 1 or 2 levels in a particular character class and focusing heavily on whatever your primary class is going to be. There's a lot of really great abilities packed into those 1st and 2nd level classes.
Now, certain character classes, their keystone abilities or capstone abilities aren't that great. So sometimes it's worth it to just take another level or even 2 levels of another character class, because even if you go all the way to 20 levels, you're not really missing out on a whole lot. And I'm looking at you, Bard. I'm looking at you.
Well, of course, the other side of that coin is, are you really playing a game to level 20? If you're only doing a 10th level game, well, those higher levels don't really mean anything.
Yeah, I believe most of the, data out there supports that most players aren't going beyond that mid to median level anyway. Yeah, you're not really missing out on that capstone ability. But, you might be missing out on some of the other abilities that you would have gotten.
We're going to go through and list some different features, list some things so you can kind of better prepare yourself when you're planning out your character build.
So right off the bat, I think we can just group a couple things together like spellcasting, right?
Okay.
Generally 1 or 2 levels of spellcasting, unless your other class is a spellcaster, isn't going to do a whole lot for you. You might get some interesting things, but you're not going to get much of it.
Unless you're specifically targeting, this spell is going to work well for my particular build. Hey, I'm doing a high AC thing and I'm going to take a level of wizard, so I've got shield as a reaction. Okay, that's going to be useful for those 2 times a day that you can do it.
Exactly. So a really important distinction to make or thing to look at, I think, is certain subclasses, you actually get access to them at 1st and 2nd level, where the rest of them you don't. You don't get them until 3rd level. So you can literally take a level dip and you actually access the subclass.
So these are really important features. Taking 3 levels is really a serious divergent away from your main path. But going in at 1st level, being able to get access to your sorcerer bloodline, your cleric domain, right off the bat, it's like you don't have to wait. You get those powers right away.
Also, there's one more at 1st level you access as well, and that's warlock. And, some of these classes are kind of front-loaded in the beginning, so, cleric is a prime example of that.
I totally love the cleric, and I was doing a barbarian paladin build and gave him the whole theme of, priestly and whatnot to kind of build towards paladin. And I realized the forge domain is so good, I had to insert it.
All right, so we already discussed the subclasses you get at 1st level. Now let's look at the ones you get at 2nd level. There's only 2. That's going to be your druid, and that's going to be your wizard.
Wizard, we've already talked about, the spell casting. Druid, same thing. But depending upon, some of those awesome abilities that you can get, it might be worth it, especially if you're already doing a spell casting build to begin with.
Right. And for the most part, you're probably going to be looking at the subclasses here to see what you want to cherry pick from those. And because you're going to have access to them, why not? Druid, doesn't really matter what subclass you go with as much, but because all of them are going to give you access to Wild Shape, which is, that's the biggie for going with Druid.
Wild Shape is an awesome ability. You get to be able to sneak with it if you turn it into something small. You can use it to scout, if you want to, scurry through the underbrush, and, no one's going to be like, oh, a mouse, it's got to be an enemy. It's just a mouse, right?
It offers a lot of utility, for sure. All right, with that, let's start looking at the specific character classes for level dipping.
All right, well, where would be a great way to look up all of this character class information?
No, Ted, where's that?
That's going to be D&D Beyond, the sponsor for this particular video.
D&D Beyond does make looking up and researching data for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons easier than ever. It's a huge database of everything the game has to offer if you have all the content unlocked. It makes making characters so fast, building new magic items, new monsters, encounters now that the encounter builder has been launched into alpha for people that have a subscription. There's just so much you can do on D&D Beyond that makes your prep time go so much faster, as well as building those characters.
The campaign option is really great, so your DM could, go in on a package and then be able to share the campaign to the players. You guys could even decide to pool your resources and have that subscription together for the GM so that everybody has access to it while the campaign is active. Super helpful. That's not all. There's also tons of really great free content. The SRD stuff is there. They got articles, they got videos. You really have to check out D&D Beyond.
Yep, even if you don't decide to buy, it's still a great place to hang out because there's a ton of information over there you can access.
All right, so with that, let's dive into the character class specifics.
All right, so I guess we might as well start right at the beginning with Barbarian. Barbarian offers up some really great options, and you get a lot of them at 1st and 2nd level. You're going to get unarmored defense. You're going to get rage, what barbarians are kind of known for. 2nd level, they have reckless attack.
So these things, if you're playing a martial class and you want to bump up the amount of damage that you're going to be able to do, going with Barbarian for a level dip is going to be a strong choice. As Dave says, that rage, that extra +2 to damage when you rage, super helpful. The unarmored defense, if you have a decent dex and constitution, your armor class might be better without wearing the armor. So another thing to be able to consider. And reckless attack, while it gives them the better chance of hitting you, it gives you a better chance of hitting and critting.
Yeah, and not only that, too, when you combine it with certain character classes, like, the rogue, it means you can pretty much sneak attack all the time. And there's also one other ability that we didn't mention, and that is Danger Sense, another cool thing you can do. Having advantage on your dexterity saves, nothing to sneeze at.
So, after Barbarian, we're going to go with Bard.
All right, so Bard, you're looking at 2 things. I could say 3, I suppose, but we kind of covered spellcasting for everyone. But you have Bardic Inspiration, super helpful. It's not as good as if you take more levels of Bard, because it is definitely one of those things that get better. It gets better later. But Jack of all trades is amazing because it gives you half your proficiency bonus to everything you're not proficient in, including initiative checks.
This is super helpful. It's pretty much good for everybody. Bardic Inspiration, if you've got nothing that you're doing with your bonus action from your other character class, this is a great way to complement and be able to aid your party.
So next up we have Cleric, and that's one of your favorites.
Yeah, I gotta love Cleric. I wind up, shoving it into places it really doesn't belong. Like I said, earlier about giving it to my Barbarian, who I didn't see it happening, but it just was too good to pass up. But we get our domain features, as I mentioned earlier, right at 1st level, and then you're gonna get your Channel Divinity at 2nd.
It's also worth mentioning the only way to get heavy armor proficiency by multiclassing is actually becoming a Cleric.
It's pretty amusing the fact that Cleric is giving you that based on which domain you wind up going with. But, it's super, super awesome. So if you're really looking to add the armor proficiency to your class, Cleric is the way to go.
All right, Drew, it's really easy. Essentially, you're looking at Wild Shape. Wild Shape is definitely the way to go, especially if you want to go Circle of the Moon. At 2nd level, you're going to get access to better beast shapes, which is going to bump up those hit points. So it's going to make any character super, super tanky and mixes really well with things like, Barbarian.
I made a Druid Barbarian in the past. Totally love the mix there. You get to play a different style of Druid when you do that.
All right, so next up is Fighter. Fighter actually gives you one of the best abilities in the entire game, but you're going to get more than that. You're going to get a fighting style. You're going to get Second Wind, being able to get extra hit points back as a bonus action. Not bad at all. And then you're going to get Action Surge, one of the strongest abilities in the game. It is actually the only feature that lets you break the rules of casting more than one spell that's not a cantrip per round.
And if you happen to, as Dave's saying, you using a spellcaster, going with Fighter is actually going to give you all your weapons, your light and medium armor. So if you don't get armor from your other class, this is a great way to go. And you're going to get those sweet abilities as well. So next up is Monk, and Monk gives you a ton of abilities in those first 2 levels. You're going to get your key points. You're going to get martial arts. What else do we got there, Dave?
You're also going to get unarmored movement and unarmored defense. Both are super helpful.
So jam-packed, into just those first couple levels. So if you want more mobility, you want some extra options, Monk is definitely a good way to go.
All right, next up we have Paladin. Paladin, you're going to get a couple things. You're going to get Lay on Hands and Divine Sense at first level, but then at second level is when their spell use kicks in, but who cares, because now you're getting Smite. If you combine this with any other class that gives you access to spell slots, this could be pretty awesome. I'm thinking a 2 levels of Paladin dip and then going Eldritch Knight the rest of the way could be a lot of fun.
Paladin, Lay on Hands, it's not a spell, so it actually winds up, working with, other spell casting or, even Barbarian Rage. It's one of those things that, I think it's a really cool class to dip into. You're going to get the armor. You're going to get so many options. Paladin is just a really strong class, regardless of how many levels you go with.
All right, next up, we have Rogue. This is one of the best dips in the game. You get sneak attack at first, second level. It's not really that big a deal, but it is an extra d6 of damage. You're going to get expertise. Expertise is awesome if you want to be really good at doing skills. And then finally you have cunning action. Cunning action is one of the best abilities in the game. As a bonus action, you can dash, disengage, or you can hide. So it always gives you something to do with your bonus action.
Rogues, another strong, powerful class. Expertise is one of my favorite abilities in the game. I like skill rolls. I like being, good at something, and rogues do it the best. Definitely going in for that. Nobody has a problem with doing more damage, with their attacks. So sneak attack is super great. And as Dave says, cunning action is just one of the best options in the game.
You might have noticed that there's a class we completely skipped, and that wasn't an accident. You can put down in the comments which one that was. So now we're just going to break it down, and we're going to actually pick what we consider the best dips. And we're actually going to break it down by the particular abilities that you get, the class features that you get.
We mentioned before that fighter is one of the best, and it really is. Getting access to the armor, getting access to a fighting style, getting access to action surge. We've said more times than I really feel like counting how action surge is one of the best abilities in the game. So because of that, because you get all of that jam-packed into just 2 levels, fighter is 100% one of the best things to level dip.
The other one is going to be Rogue. That sneak attack, not bad, but when you combine expertise as well as the cunning action, pretty much these are things that are going to be useful to anybody all the time. And that's also why fighter was on the list as well, because they get abilities that are going to be useful to pretty much everybody.
One more that we're gonna mention here that is a useful anywhere across the board if you're willing to dive in and grab into the concept of wizard, divination, tradition, and that is to get the ability Portent. You have the ability to grab 2 d20 rolls at the beginning of every day, and you can use your reaction to replace them with anybody else's roll throughout the course of your day. Oh, your DM crit? Nah, you're going to replace that with a 2 that you wound up rolling. Oh, you have a 17 that you saved. Oh, that 3 that you rolled on that saving throw. Nah, never mind. Use your reaction, and it's now a 17. You passed.
And for that reason, Divination Wizard goes on there. Because again, it's just another ability that is super useful for pretty much anybody. You can work that in, and it's going to come in clutch. And that's just it. Like where the other abilities have more staying power, you're going to use them more throughout your adventuring days. That Portent ability is just a clutch ability. And when you really need to hit, or you really need someone to fail their save, or someone needs to really pass, that's crucial.
And it's one of those things that it's not just good for you. It's good for the entire party. Give it to an ally, give it to an enemy. Super, super helpful.
Now, I would point out, if I had runners up, it would definitely be Barbarian and Monk. But the difference between those 2 character classes for level dipping is they're very specific. You're doing very specific things, but you do get a lot for 2 levels. So there are also nice ways to go. But that is why they didn't make it into our top 3.
Yeah, the top 3 was they are good across the board, regardless of the type of character you are playing, if you're willing to, dip into those classes.
Question is, what are you dipping into in your games? We got a place where we can discuss it down in the comments. But before we head on out, let me take a moment to invite you to join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party over on Patreon. Ted, what can they expect over there?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons every month that players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
But that's not all. We do monthly giveaways and our patrons are automatically entered.
We also do weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
So quest on down to the description where you can find a link to join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party. And until next time, stay nerdy.